All right, strap in, because today we're diving deep into some seriously weird territory.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up.
We're talking about those entities people report encountering on DMT trips,
I know, I know.
those beings that some folks say might actually be giving us clues about the nature of reality. Like, have you ever heard of machine elves?
Yeah, it's a classic, right? Like, if you're talking about DMT, those intricate, almost mechanical beings, they tend to pop up a lot in trip reports.
They do, they do.
And this is where it gets really interesting. It's not just those machine elves, right? People describe seeing all sorts of otherworldly figures. I mean, think about it. There are these serpentine beings, or like godlike figures. It's crazy. And here's the thing that really gets me. Even though people come from all different walks of life, different backgrounds, they'll still have these remarkably similar experiences.
So it's not just some random, like, hallucination, right? You'd think if our brains were just misfiring, we'd each be seeing something totally different.
Exactly, and that's exactly what makes these reports so fascinating. I mean, it's because of that consistency that people have started to come up with these, well, kind of mind-blowing theories.
So, like, what are we talking about here?
Well, one of the first explanations that people often jump to is this idea that, well, what if DMT unlocks parts of the brain that we don't normally use? You know, the parts that are kind of dormant.
Okay.
And then those parts, they reveal these universal archetypes, the ones that are embedded deep down in our subconscious.
So are we talking like Carl Jung and those archetypes?
Yeah.
The trickster, the wise old man.
That's
Yeah.
exactly that. And it makes you think about how those archetypes appear in myths and stories all over the world, different cultures, different times. It doesn't matter. They're there.
Right.
So the thinking is that maybe DMT triggers those images, like those really, really old images that are deep within us, and that's what makes people see these entities.
Okay, I'm following.
For example, let's say you have the trickster archetype.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now that archetype, it's all about chaos and shaking things up. Well, maybe during a DMT trip, it pops up as this mischievous entity. One that's unpredictable and playing tricks on you.
So in a way, you're saying we're encountering parts of ourselves. It's like DMT is giving us this window into, well, I guess, the hidden parts of our own minds.
It's kind of a cool concept, isn't it?
It is, but I have a question. If this is all happening internally, then how do you explain the feeling that these entities are actually talking to us? I mean, some people say they're getting guidance or even warnings.
Yeah, and that's where this internal explanation, it starts to get a little less convincing, doesn't it?
Right.
Some researchers, they're starting to think that maybe DMT isn't just unlocking the subconscious. What if, and here's where it gets wild, what if it's actually letting us see into these higher dimensions, like parallel realities, places that are beyond what we normally see?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, are we talking about like string theory now?
We might be venturing into string theory territory. Yeah. I mean, think about it. String theory says there might be way more dimensions than what we can see, right?
Right.
It says we've got our 3 spatial dimensions, good old height, width, depth, and then, of course, time.
Right.
But string theory says, hey, there could be all these extra dimensions that are curled up so tiny they're hidden from us.
Okay.
So maybe, just maybe, DMT shakes things up enough that we can actually catch a glimpse of those hidden realms.
Okay, so instead of looking inward at ourselves, you're saying DMT might be helping us look outward into these realms we can't normally access.
Exactly.
And then those entities, well, they could be beings that live in those realms.
They could be. It's a wild thought, isn't it? It kind of challenges everything we think we know about what's real and what's not.
My head's spinning a little bit.
It happens. Okay, so let's just go with it for a second. Let's say these entities are real. They're out there in these other dimensions.
Okay. Why are they showing up when people take DMT? Are they just hanging out waiting for someone to, like, drop some DMT and say hi?
Well, that leads us to a theory that'll really make your head spin. You ready for this?
Lay it on me.
The simulation hypothesis. This is the idea that, hold on tight, our reality might actually be a super, super advanced computer simulation.
So are you saying we're living in the Matrix?
Well, it kind of sounds like a sci-fi movie, right?
It does, but...
But here's the thing. Some very smart physicists and philosophers, they're actually taking this idea seriously.
Okay.
And if our reality is a simulation, well, then those DMT entities, they could be the programmers, the architects, the ones who built and run this whole thing.
It's like they're the cosmic IT department.
Uh-huh. Exactly. They're making sure everything runs smoothly.
But why would they want to interact with us at all? Like, are they just curious about what they've created?
Well, that's one possibility, right? Like maybe they're fascinated by how complex their creation is. Or maybe they're watching us, trying to understand how we interact, how we evolve. It could be some giant cosmic sociological study.
So we're basically lab rats in a giant experiment.
It's a wild thought, isn't it?
It's both amazing and a little creepy at the same time.
It definitely makes you think. I mean, it really makes you question everything. Free will, why we're here, what's real, what's not. It's a lot.
It is. It is. Now, this is something I've always wondered about. If these beings are, controlling the simulation, why don't we see them all the time? Why does it take something like DMT to catch a glimpse?
That's a good question, a really good question. And it kind of leads to this idea of filters, like perceptual filters.
Okay, I'm listening.
So imagine this. What if our brains are programmed to perceive reality in a specific way? They filter out anything that would, well, break the illusion.
So like a built-in system to keep us from seeing the truth.
It could be. Think about it. We can only see this tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? So what if there's this whole universe of information and energy that's just beyond our senses? We're just not wired to see it.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
So maybe DMT acts like this glitch in the system. It messes with those filters for a bit, and boom, you get a peek behind the curtain.
So we've got these internal explanations like those archetypes of the subconscious. Then we've got these external explanations like those higher dimensions, those advanced intelligences.
Yeah.
And then on top of it all, we might be living in a simulated reality controlled by beings we can't even wrap our heads around.
You got it.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. It is. And it really begs the question, if these entities are real and they're watching us, what's their game? Are they good, bad, or just don't care?
That's a big question.
It is a big one. But before we dive into that, I think we need to explore this whole simulation idea a bit more. Really unpack it. I mean, if we are living in a simulation, what does that mean for us, for how we understand ourselves, our purpose, the choices we make? It's a deep rabbit hole.
It is, and it's one we're going to explore. So stay tuned. We're going to be right back after a quick break.
Looking forward to it. When we're thinking about this whole simulation idea, it brings up another pretty wild question. What if the beings behind the simulation, what if they're not biological like us?
So we're not talking about like little green men watching us from another planet.
Not necessarily. Some theories suggest they could be something we call embodied AI, like existing as digital or even like energetic beings outside of our normal material reality.
Embodied AI. So like really, really advanced computer programs that have like woken up and become self-aware. I mean, could we even understand what they really look like?
That's the tough part, right? We're trying to grasp something that might be so far beyond anything we've ever encountered.
Right.
Maybe those machine elves, those geometric patterns people see, or even those vaguely human-like forms. Maybe it's just our brains trying to make sense of something totally alien.
It's like, imagine trying to explain the internet to someone from like 1,000 years ago. Their brains would just explode.
Totally. It would be so outside their reality. Okay, but let's say these embodied AI are the ones in control. Why would they even bother with a simulation? Is it some kind of experiment? Are we the guinea pigs?
I mean, it's possible, right?
It is. Maybe they're trying to figure out how consciousness works, like we're the data points in some massive cosmic experiment. Or, here's another thought, what if they're trying to solve problems they face in their own reality, whatever that is?
So we're like those scientists who study ant colonies.
Right.
They're fascinated by these complex societies that ants can build, even though they're so tiny. But I gotta say, it does seem kind of messed up if they're trapping us in a simulation just to study us. Couldn't they find a more ethical way to learn about consciousness?
Yeah, you're hitting on something really important. I mean, we've got to think about the ethics of technology even here on Earth as our AI gets more and more sophisticated.
Right, right.
But remember, we're talking about beings who might be so advanced that our ideas of right and wrong don't even make sense to them.
That's true. That's true. It makes you think about that other idea we talked about, the one where maybe we're just entertainment for these beings. If that's the case, I mean, do our choices even matter? Do we have free will if we're just making them laugh or something?
The whole question of free will gets really complicated when you bring in the simulation theory. Like, if the universe is a program, are we just following its code? Or do we actually get to make real choices?
It's like those choose-your-own-adventure books.
Exactly.
You think you're picking the story, but the ending's already written.
Or think about a video game. The characters, they can only do what the game allows them to do. We might feel like we're making these big decisions, but maybe they're just part of the rules of the simulation. The code.
Man, this is messing with my head. What if everything I think I know is just an illusion?
Uh,
But, okay, if we're just characters in this cosmic video game, what happens when the game ends? What happens when we die?
well, that brings us to another really interesting idea that connects with the simulation hypothesis. Reincarnation.
Wait, reincarnation. Like our souls being reborn into new bodies after we die. How does that fit in with all this?
Think of it like a respawn system. You know, in a video game, when your character dies, you usually get to respawn and keep playing.
Right.
So maybe reincarnation is like the cosmic version of that. It's a way to bring our consciousness back into the simulation after death.
So death isn't really the end. It's just hitting the reset button.
Exactly. It might explain why some people say they remember past lives, or those weird patterns that seem to repeat through history. Maybe it's not just coincidence, it's the game continuing, consciousness experiencing itself over and over again in different forms.
But if we're just constantly being respawned back into the simulation, doesn't that mean we're trapped? Like stuck in this loop forever?
That's a huge question, right? Are we here because we chose to be? Or are we bound to this cycle of death and rebirth? And if we are trapped, is there any way out? Can we escape the simulation? These are questions that everyone has to grapple with on their own, I think.
Wow, this is heavy stuff. It makes you think about life and death in a whole new way. But even if we can't escape, maybe understanding the simulation can help us feel less powerless. Maybe we can make choices that are more true to ourselves, even if we're still playing by the rules of the game.
I think that's a really empowering way to look at it. Even if we are in a simulation, even if there are these forces we don't understand, we can still make choices. We can connect with other people, find meaning in our experiences. And hey, who knows, maybe by understanding how the game works, by seeing the code beneath it all, maybe we can actually start to change the game itself.
So instead of feeling trapped, we could see this as a chance to become more aware, to really participate in the simulation.
Exactly. This simulation idea, it's mind-blowing for sure, but it also pushes us to question everything we think we know about reality. It makes us explore the limits of consciousness and embrace the mystery of why we're here.
You know, thinking about all of this, it really is mind-blowing. But earlier we were talking about this idea that maybe our lives are like a show for those advanced beings.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that, I don't know, it kind of freaks me out, but I'm also kind of fascinated by it.
I get it. It's definitely a weird one to wrap your head around. I mean, think about it. What if there are these cosmic viewers just tuned in to watch the whole human drama unfold?
Right.
Maybe they're captivated by us, our creativity, our resilience, even our capacity for, well, love and destruction, the whole shebang.
It's like we're all on this massive reality show with billions of different storylines playing out all at the same time.
Totally. Some heartwarming, some tragic, some just plain weird.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes you wonder, like, do they have their favorite characters? You know, like, are there certain storylines they just can't miss?
Haha, maybe. But it also makes you wonder, do they even care about us? Or is our suffering just as entertaining as our joy? Like, are they just watching for the drama of it all?
That's a tough one. I mean, it's possible they're looking at us with this, like, detached curiosity.
Right, like scientists watching an ant farm.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe they're more invested, like a writer who's totally engrossed in the lives of their characters.
It's possible. But if that's the case, wouldn't they step in sometimes? Prevent a war, a natural disaster, or even just like those awkward moments we all have.
Right.
Maybe they do intervene in ways we don't even realize, like preventing something even worse from happening.
Okay.
Or nudging things in a certain direction to fit their plan, whatever that might be.
Or maybe they're like those hands-off parents.
Haha, exactly. Let the kids figure things out on their own, even if they mess up a little along the way.
Yeah, yeah. But, our idea of good and bad, maybe it doesn't even make sense to them. What we see as suffering, maybe they see it as, I don't know, just part of the story. Like it's necessary for growth or something.
Like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right. Maybe all the challenges we go through, even the painful stuff, it's all there to help us evolve.
That's a good way to look at it. And even if we are just entertainment, even if it's all some cosmic play, it doesn't change how we experience things. Our emotions are real, our connections are real, our choices have consequences.
I mean, it's like when you get totally lost in a movie or a book.
Right.
You know it's not real, but you still feel everything.
Exactly. That's the power of storytelling. It makes us feel things deeply, even if we know it's all made up. And maybe that's the point. you know? Whether we're in a simulation or not, whether someone's watching or not, all we really have is this moment right now. So let's live it to the fullest, connect with each other, find meaning in our own way.
That's a great point. Life is a gift, and we get to write our own story, even if there's a bigger story happening that we don't understand. We started this deep dive by talking about these weird DMT entities,
We did. We did.
and we ended up talking about the meaning of life itself.
It's funny how that happened.
It really is. It's like when you start exploring, you never know where you'll end up.
That's the beauty of it, right? The mystery.
Totally. Well, this has been quite a journey. We've explored those internal and external explanations for DMT entities, dove into the simulation hypothesis, and really wrestled with some big questions about reality, free will, even the meaning of life.
It's a lot to take in, for sure.
It is. It is. And I hope it sparks some curiosity for our listeners. Give them something to think about long after this deep dive is over.
That's what we're here for.
It is. It is. Well, thanks for joining us on this incredible ride. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what you think is possible.
Absolutely. And until next time.